You are driving down the road minding your own business, when suddenly those blue and red lights start dancing in your rearview mirror. Your heart begins to race, your palms get sweaty, and your mind starts grasping for every legal tip you have ever heard on the internet. For most people, a traffic stop is a high-stress confrontation where they feel completely powerless. But the truth is that the power dynamic in that moment is more balanced than you think. If you know how to navigate the legal boundaries of a traffic stop, you can actually shorten the interaction and walk away without a ticket or, more importantly, without a trip to jail. Most people talk their way into trouble, but today I am going to teach you 5 high-level legal tricks to talk your way out of it, or at least end the interaction as fast as humanly possible. As a lawyer who sees these cases play out in court every day, I can tell you that the side of the road is not the place for an argument. It is a place for a precise, tactical script. Let's get into the moves that actually work. The first trick is what I call the dome light and hands technique. This starts the second you see the lights. Most people wait until the officer is at the window to start looking for their registration, digging through the glove box, or reaching under the seat for their wallet. To a police officer, this looks like you are hiding a weapon or concealing contraband. Their stress levels go through the roof before they even speak to you. If you want to end a stop fast, you need to lower the officer's internal alarm system immediately. If it is dark, turn on your interior dome light. Both hands should be at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, visible and relaxed. Do not reach for anything until the officer asks for it. Why is this a legal trick? Because it removes the officer's ability to claim they had a reasonable suspicion to search your car based on furtive movements. If you are perfectly still and the car is brightly lit, they cannot justify a protective sweep or an intrusive search of your cabin by saying they saw you ducking down or reaching for something. You are creating a controlled environment where the officer feels safe, and a safe officer is an officer who wants to get the paperwork done and move on to the next call. The second trick is the why trap. When an officer walks up to your window, the first thing they almost always ask is, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" This is not a friendly conversation. This is a solicitation for a confession. If you say, "I guess I was speeding a little," or "I might have rolled through that stop sign," you have just handed the officer a winning ticket in a courtroom. You have admitted to the violation, and your chances of fighting that ticket later have just plummeted to 0. The trick to ending this fast is to respond with a polite but firm question of your own. "Officer, I'm not sure. Could you tell me why I was stopped?" You are forcing the officer to state their legal justification for the stop on the record. Most body cameras and dash cameras are recording the audio. If the officer gives an inconsistent reason or admits they didn't really have a clear reason, your lawyer can use that to get the entire stop suppressed later. Never ever admit to anything at the window. Let them do the talking while you remain a polite, non-answering observer. The third trick is the "Am I free to go" loop. This is the most powerful sentence in the English language when it comes to traffic stops. A traffic stop is legally a temporary detention. According to the Supreme Court, the police can only hold you for as long as it takes to complete the mission of the stop, usually checking your license and writing a warning or a ticket. Once the officer hands you back your documents, they often try to engage you in consensual conversation. They'll lean on the door and ask, "So where are you headed tonight?" Or "Anything in the car I should know about?" This is the danger zone. They are trying to find a reason to keep you there, and eventually search your car. The trick is to ask, "Officer, am I free to go, or am I being detained?" If they say you are free to go, you leave immediately. If they say you are being detained, you ask, "On what legal basis?" By repeating "Am I free to go?" you are putting the officer on notice that the clock is ticking. They know that if they hold you for too long without a secondary reason, like the smell of something illegal or a visible weapon, the entire stop becomes unconstitutional. Trick number 4 is the limited consent shield. Officers are trained to ask for consent to search in very sneaky ways. They might say, "You don't mind if I take a quick look in the back, do you?" Or "If you have nothing to hide, you won't mind me checking the trunk." Most people feel pressured and say yes. This is a massive mistake. Once you give consent, the Fourth Amendment effectively stops working for you. They can tear your car apart, and you can't complain about it later. The trick here is to be very specific. If an officer asks to search, your answer is, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches of my person or my property." You don't have to be a jerk about it. You can say it with a smile. If they tell you that refusing consent makes you look guilty, remind them that you are simply exercising a constitutional right. If they decide to search anyway, do not physically stop them, but keep saying, "I do not consent to this." This ensures that any evidence they find can be challenged in court. Without your consent, the officer must prove they had probable cause, which is a much higher bar than just having a hunch. The fifth and final trick is the duration defense. This is specifically for when the officer is trying to stall you while waiting for a drug-sniffing dog or backup. As I mentioned, a stop cannot be longer than necessary. If the officer has checked your license and it's clear, but they are just standing by their car waiting for a K9 unit, they are violating your rights. The trick here is to look at your watch and verbally note the time. "Officer, it's been 15 minutes since the traffic portion of this stop was completed. Why am I still being held?" By stating this on the body camera, you are creating a record of a prolonged detention. In the case of Rodriguez versus Yao, United States, the Supreme Court ruled that even a few extra minutes of detention to wait for a dog is illegal if there wasn't an independent reason to suspect drugs. By being aware of the time and mentioning your right to a timely stop, you are sending a message to the officer that you know the law and you are ready to fight any overreach in court. Often, when an officer realizes they are dealing with an informed citizen who is tracking the time, they will decide the K9 isn't worth the legal headache and let you go. Now let's talk about why these tricks work from a psychological perspective. Police officers are used to two types of people: those who are completely submissive and give up all their rights, and those who are aggressive, yelling, and threatening. Both of these groups are easy for the police to handle. The submissive person is easy to search, and the aggressive person provides an excuse for a use of force or a disorderly conduct arrest. The person the police actually fear is the informed professional, respectful, but absolutely immovable when it comes to their rights. When you use these tricks, you are signaling that you are not low-hanging fruit. You are signaling that you are a high-value target for a lawyer to defend if anything goes sideways. Let's dive deeper into the "Am I free to go" move, because it is the one people mess up the most. You have to wait for the right moment. The best time to ask is right after the officer has asked a question that has nothing to do with the traffic stop. If they ask where you're coming from or where you're going, that is your cue. "Officer, I'm happy to provide my documents, but I'm not comfortable discussing my personal business. Am I free to go?" This creates a clear break in the encounter. It forces the officer to either let you go or admit that they are detaining you for something more than a traffic violation. If they say you're being detained, you have now narrowed the scope of the interaction. They have to tell you the specific crime they suspect you of committing. If they can't name one, they are on very thin legal ice. Another thing to keep in mind is the passenger's role. If you have passengers in the car, they have rights too. Passengers are also seized during a traffic stop, but they usually do not have to provide identification unless the officer has a specific reason to suspect the passenger of an independent crime. However, the same rules apply to them. Keep their hands visible, and not consent to searches of their bags or person. If your passenger starts talking or trying to help the situation, tell them to be quiet. One person should be the spokesperson for the car, and that person should be the driver. A passenger who tries to argue with a cop can turn a simple speeding ticket into a full-blown car search in seconds. What about the officer's safety excuse? This is the most common way officers try to get around your rights. They will say they felt threatened, or that they saw a bulge in your pocket to justify a pat-down. This is why trick number 1, the dome light and hands on the wheel, is so vital. It is much harder for an officer to tell a judge they were in fear for their safety when the video shows a driver with their hands clearly visible, the cabin lit up, and a calm tone of voice. You are essentially taking away their fear-based legal justifications. Let's talk about the "I smell something" move that cops love to use. If an officer says they smell marijuana or alcohol, your tricks change slightly. You can't stop them from searching the car at that point in many jurisdictions, because the smell counts as probable cause. However, your response should still follow the script, and I do not consent to a search. Do not try to explain that you had a drink 5 hours ago or that your cousin might have smoked in the car. Any explanation is an admission. If they find something, let them find it without your help. If they find nothing, but you admitted there was a smell earlier, you've just given them a reason to justify the stop and the search after the fact. One of the big misconceptions is that you have to be alpha or tough to end a stop. That is the opposite of the truth. De-escalation is your best friend. Every time you are respectful, saying yes officer or no officer, you are making yourself look like a good witness for a future jury. Imagine a judge watching your body cam footage. Do they see a person who is trying to cause trouble? Or do they see a citizen who is being polite but firm about their privacy? Judges are human. They like people who are respectful of the process. If the officer is being a bully, and you are being a gentleman or a lady, the judge is going to be much more likely to rule in your favor on a close legal call. Let's talk about the phone trick. Many people think they should pull out their phone and start filming immediately. I am a huge fan of recording the police, but there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. The wrong way is to shove the phone in the officer's face while they are trying to talk to you. This can be interpreted as an interference with their duties or a safety threat, because you are holding an object near them. The right way is to have your phone mounted on a dashboard holder or propped up in a way that captures the audio and video without you having to hold it. Record the interaction, but don't let the act of recording become the focus of the stop. If the officer tells you to put the phone down, say, "Officer, I am recording this for my own protection and yours, and I am not interfering with your duties." You have a First Amendment right to record the police in public as long as you aren't physically in their way. Another secret that lawyers know is the Miranda trap. Most people think the police have to read you your rights the moment they stop you. They don't. They only have to read them if you are in custodial interrogation, basically. If you are under arrest and they are questioning you. However, anything you say before you are arrested can and will be used against you. This is why trick number 2, not admitting to the violation, is so important. The officer is trying to get all the evidence they need before the handcuffs phase. They want you to admit you were speeding, admit you have a beer in the car, or admit you knew your license was suspended. Don't give them the pre-Miranda confessions. Keep your mouth shut until you are talking to a lawyer. What should you do if the officer is genuinely being aggressive or illegal? If they are reaching into your car without permission or trying to pull you out for no reason, do not resist physically. Resisting an officer, even if the officer is wrong, is a crime in almost every state. It is called resisting without violence or obstructing an officer. If you fight them on the street, you lose. The trick is to state your objection and let the camera do the work. "Officer, you are pulling me out of the car without a legal reason, and I am not consenting to this. I am complying under protest." This one sentence is worth its weight in gold in a courtroom. It shows that you weren't willingly participating in their illegal conduct. Let's look at the ticket versus warning dynamic. Sometimes, if you follow these tricks too perfectly, the officer might get annoyed and write you a ticket when they were originally going to give you a warning. Many people see this as a failure. It's not. A ticket can be fought. A ticket can be dismissed. An arrest, a car search, or a criminal record are much harder to deal with. If you have to take a ticket for a broken taillight to avoid a search of your trunk, that is a massive win. You are playing the long game. Don't let your ego get in the way of a tactical victory. I want to touch on the searching the person trick. If an officer asks you to step out of the car, they often try to frisk you immediately. This is only legal if they have a reasonable suspicion that you are armed and dangerous. It is not an automatic right just because you were speeding. If they start to frisk you, ask, "Officer, do you have a specific reason to believe I am armed and dangerous?" This forces them to justify the frisk. If they say it's just a policy, that is an illegal frisk. Policies do not override the Constitution. You still let them do it, but you make sure the protest is on mic. The window trick is another one you've probably seen online, where people only crack the window an inch. Legally, you are required to provide your documents, and in some states, step out of the car if ordered. Cracking the window just an inch often escalates the situation because the officer feels like you are being difficult. I recommend rolling the window all the way down. Why? Because it shows you have nothing to hide, and it makes the officer feel less blocked. But being open and transparent with your physical space while being closed and guarded with your legal consent is the fastest way to get an officer to relax and finish the stop. Let's discuss the social engineering aspect of the stop. Officers are trained in command presence. They use their voice, their stance, and their authority to get you to do things you aren't legally required to do. They might say, "Step back here to the patrol car with me." You don't usually have to do that unless you are under arrest. You can stay by your car. They might say, "Help me out here." Where's the stuff? They are trying to build rapport to get a confession. Don't fall for the "we're just two guys talking" routine. The second they put those lights on, it is a formal, hostile legal proceeding. Treat it as such. Another trick that ends stops fast is having your documents ready. Not digging for them, but having them in a place where you can reach them without looking. I tell my clients to keep their insurance and registration on the sun visor or in a clear pouch. When the officer asks for it, you can grab it in 1 second. This shows the officer that you are organized and that you've done this before. It signals that you are not a chaotic person who is likely to have a messy, illegal life. It's a subtle status signal that can lead to a warning instead of a ticket because you look like a responsible citizen who just made a minor mistake. What about the canine sniff from the outside of the car? The Supreme Court has ruled that a dog sniffing the exterior of your car during a lawful traffic stop is not a search under the Fourth Amendment. However, if the dog alerts, that gives the officer probable cause to go inside. This is why you want the stop to be fast. The longer you sit there, the more time there is for a canine unit to cruise by. If the dog is already there, don't panic. Refuse consent anyway. Sometimes the dog alerts because the officer signaled it to alert, or the dog is just wrong. If you've refused consent, your lawyer can get the dog's training records and challenge its reliability in court. I want to talk about the "I'm a lawyer" or "I know my rights" trap. Do not say these things. It is the fastest way to get an officer to decide they are going to be as difficult as possible. If you actually know your rights, you don't have to state them. You just have to exercise them. Instead of saying "I know my rights," just say "I do not consent." Instead of saying "I'm a lawyer," just speak with the precision of someone who knows the law. Show, don't tell. An officer who realizes you are informed through your actions will be much more careful than one who is being yelled at by someone claiming to be an expert. Another high-level trick is the silent treatment. If you are really nervous and you're afraid you're going to say something stupid, you can literally just stop talking. You can say, "Officer, I'm going to remain silent now, and I'd like to speak with my attorney. This is your Fifth Amendment right." It might make the stop feel awkward, but it is infinitely safer than rambling because of nerves. Silence cannot be used against you as evidence of guilt in a courtroom. Let's talk about the body language trick. Keep your movements slow. If you need to reach for something, tell the officer first. "Officer, I'm going to reach for my insurance now. It's in the center console." This is not just for safety. It's for legal optics. It shows that you are in control of the situation. It makes it impossible for the officer to later claim that you were acting erratically or nervously. Nervousness is often cited by police as a reason for reasonable suspicion. If you are as cool as an ice cube, they lose that tool. If the officer asks you "Where are you coming from?" and you don't want to answer, another way to deflect is to say, "I'd prefer to keep my personal life private, and I'm in a bit of a hurry to get to my destination." It's a polite way of saying none of your business. It provides a reason for why you want to end the stop being in a hurry without admitting to speeding. It feels more natural than a flat refusal to speak, and it often works to get the officer to just get back to the ticket writing part of the job. I also want to mention the GPS trick. If you are being pulled over for a moving violation, and you have your GPS running, do not turn it off. The GPS data can be used later to prove your actual speed or your actual path. If an officer claims you were doing 80 in a 60, but your GPS log shows you were doing 62, that is powerful evidence. Some dash cams also record your speed directly onto the video. These technical witnesses are much more reliable than an officer's visual estimation. Now, why do I call these tricks? Because they are tactical maneuvers, designed to navigate a system that is rigged in favor of the police. The law gives officers a lot of leeway, but it also gives you specific no-go zones that they cannot cross. These tricks are just ways to make sure you stay in those zones. It's about creating a legal barrier between you and the officer's desire to investigate you further than the traffic stop allows. As we get toward the end of the stop, there is one final move. When the officer hands you the ticket and asks you to sign it. Signing a ticket is not an admission of guilt. It is just an acknowledgement that you received it. If you refuse to sign, you can be arrested and taken to jail right then and there. Sign the paper, take your copy, and then go back to trick number 3. "Officer, am I free to go?" Once they say yes, put your car in gear and leave slowly. Don't peel out, don't look back, just move on. The side of the road is the police officer's office. They are in charge there. You are not going to win the trial on the pavement. Your only goal is to minimize the damage and end the encounter. The trial happens in a room with a judge, a court reporter, and your lawyer. By using these 5 tricks, you are essentially saving all your ammo for the place where it actually matters. You are giving your lawyer the best possible set of facts to work with. A traffic stop doesn't have to be a disaster. It can be a 10-minute annoyance that ends with a piece of paper you can deal with later. But if you don't know these tricks, it can turn into a life-changing event. The difference between a good stop and a bad stop is usually the words that come out of the driver's mouth. Be the person who says, "I don't consent," not the person who says, "I guess you can look." I've seen people get off of serious charges because they had the discipline to stay silent. I've seen people get their cases dismissed because they asked, "Am I free to go at exactly the right time?" The law is a tool, but like any tool, you have to know how to swing it. These tricks are the owner's manual for your constitutional rights during a stop. Keep them in your back pocket. Stay calm. And always remember that you have more power than the lights in your mirror would suggest. As you drive away, take a breath. You survived the interaction. You protected your rights, and you didn't give the state anything they can use to hurt you later. That is a successful stop. Your car is still yours. Your record is still clean, and your dignity is intact. That is the power of knowing the law. Stay safe out there. Keep your hands on the wheel, and I'll see you in the next one, where we dive even deeper into how to protect yourself from the legal system's traps.